Have you ever found yourself standing before an insurmountable wall, unsure of how to move forward? What happens when every turn seems blocked, and the weight of your trials feels too heavy to bear? These are moments that challenge even the strongest among us. C.S. Lewis once posed a profound question: where do you look when the way is dark and all seems lost? He reminds us that in these moments of despair, God's hand is never far from reach. Even when we cannot see the way, God is working, laying the groundwork for a breakthrough that will surpass all understanding. As we walk by faith, not by sight, we discover that our struggles can be the very path to our greatest blessings. Stay with us, for today we'll uncover the profound truth in Scripture that shows how God can turn your trials into triumphs, guiding you to blessings beyond your wildest dreams. Together, we will delve into the wisdom of the Word and find hope in God's unshakable promises. In the book of Isaiah 43, verse 16, God speaks with a powerful declaration. This is what the Lord says: He who made a way through the sea, a path through the mighty waters. This verse draws us into the miraculous event of the Red Sea's parting, where the Israelites found themselves in an impossible predicament, hemmed in by Pharaoh's advancing army and the vast expanse of the sea. Yet, in that moment of seeming despair, God did the unimaginable. He created a pathway through the waters, a route of deliverance that no human could have conceived. This same God who intervened so mightily on behalf of His people is the one who stands ready to make a way for you today. His power remains undiminished, His love unfaltering. C.S. Lewis, in his writings, often reflected on the nature of God's intervention in our lives. He emphasized that while we may not always see or understand the ways in which God is working, we are called to trust that He is indeed at work. In The Problem of Pain, Lewis writes, God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is His megaphone to rouse a deaf world. This echoes the sentiment found in James 1 verse 12, which states, Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love Him. Lewis understood that trials and suffering are not pointless, rather. They are integral to the process of refining our faith and drawing us closer to God. The crown of life mentioned here is not just a promise of eternal life, but a symbol of the abundant blessings and the ultimate victory that God has in store for those who remain steadfast. These passages, both from Scripture and the insights of Lewis, underscore two profound truths. First, God's unmatched ability to create a way through what we perceive as insurmountable barriers. And second, the assurance of divine reward for those who endure their trials with unwavering faith. When you face challenges that seem too great to overcome, remember the parting of the Red Sea and the promise of the crown of life. These stories are not just historical events or distant promises, they are living testimonies of God's faithfulness and His active presence in our lives today. Lewis also reminds us in Mere Christianity that faith is not merely about believing in God's existence, but about trusting in His character, especially when life becomes difficult. He wrote, Faith is the art of holding on to things your reason has once accepted, in spite of your changing moods. This is the kind of faith that sees the Red Sea and trusts that God will part it. The kind of faith that faces trials and holds on to the promise of the crown of life. As you navigate your own life's journey, let these truths be your guide. God's hand is at work, even in the darkest of times, carving paths where none seem to exist. The journey may be fraught with trials, but each test is an opportunity to strengthen your faith and deepen your reliance on Him. Trust that the God who parted the waters for the Israelites and who promises the crown of life to the steadfast is the same God who walks with you today, ready to lead you to your breakthrough. Embrace this journey of faith with confidence, knowing that God's plan for you is far greater than any obstacle you may face. Life is a journey of faith, often resembling a trek through an unknown, dense forest. The path before us may not always be visible, yet we are called to walk by faith, trusting in God's guidance, even when uncertainty clouds our vision. This journey requires a deep trust in God's promises and His Word, anchoring our hearts in the truth that God is faithful, even when we cannot see the full picture. Proverbs 3 verse 5-6 reminds us to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. This verse encapsulates the essence of faith, relinquishing control and placing our lives in God's hands, knowing that He is the one who clears the way ahead. The story of Abraham serves as a powerful example of this trust. When God called Abraham to leave his homeland and journey to an unknown land, he obeyed without hesitation, despite the uncertainty that lay ahead. His unwavering faith in God's promise led to great blessings, not only for him but for generations to come. Abraham's faith was not just a belief in what could be seen, it was a profound confidence in what God had promised, even when the fulfillment of those promises seemed distant. This type of faith is further illuminated in Hebrews 11 verse 1, which teaches that faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. This assurance is not rooted in our circumstances but in God's unchanging faithfulness. It is a confidence that allows us to move forward, even when the road ahead is unclear, trusting that God's plans for us are good and will be fulfilled in His perfect timing. Trials and challenges are inevitable on this journey, but they are not without purpose. In fact, these trials are opportunities for growth, a refining process much like gold being purified by fire. James 1 verse 2-4 encourages us to consider it pure joy whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. These words remind us that trials are not just obstacles to overcome, they are essential to our spiritual development, shaping us into the people God has called us to be. Joseph's life is a testament to this truth. Betrayed by his brothers and sold into slavery, Joseph endured years of hardship, including imprisonment, before he saw the fulfillment of God's plan. Yet, through it all, Joseph remained faithful, trusting that God was working for good even in the midst of his suffering. Genesis 50 verse 20 reveals this profound truth: you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Joseph's story is a powerful reminder that our trials are part of a greater divine purpose, one that often becomes clear only in hindsight. The trials we face are not random, they are purposeful, orchestrated by God to strengthen our faith and prepare us for the future. Romans 8 verse 28 assures us that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. This verse provides comfort and hope, reminding us that even in the midst of our most difficult seasons, God is at work, using our experiences to bring about His good plans. Faith is a source of strength. Just as a tree grows stronger when it withstands the wind, our faith deepens as we endure trials. These experiences fortify our trust in God, preparing us for greater things. As we journey through life, we can hold on to the promise of God's continued guidance and provision, knowing that He is with us every step of the way. In this journey of faith, we find our strength not in our own understanding, but in the assurance that God is leading us. His promises are our anchor, His guidance our compass, and His love our sustenance. Therefore, continue to walk by faith, trusting in the One who sees the entire path, even when we cannot. And in doing so, may we always be grateful for His unfailing presence, knowing that He is guiding us toward the fullness of His blessings. In the symphony of life, God's timing is the masterful conductor, orchestrating every note with precision, even when we cannot hear the melody clearly. Just as a conductor ensures each instrument plays at the right moment to create a harmonious composition, God arranges every event in our lives to fit perfectly into His divine plan. Often we find ourselves restless, longing for answers or for a sign that God is near. Yet, in those moments of silence, we must remember that God's timing is impeccable. He is never late, nor is he early. He moves in perfect rhythm, aligning our lives according to his will. Patience and trust are the twin pillars upon which our faith must stand. Like Abraham and Sarah, who waited for years for the fulfillment of God's promise, we too are called to trust in God's timing. Their story reminds us that even when circumstances seem impossible, God is at work, preparing something far greater than we could imagine. The waiting period is not a time of inactivity, but a season of preparation. As C.S. Lewis once said, "I am sure that God keeps no one waiting unless he sees that it is good for him to wait. This waiting is an opportunity to deepen our faith, to grow in trust, and to ready ourselves for the blessings God has in store." Waiting on God is an active pursuit. It requires us to engage in prayer, to seek his guidance, and to align our hearts with his purpose. This is not a passive endurance, but a deliberate act of faith. In prayer, we find strength and reassurance, a connection to the divine that anchors us in turbulent times. Prayer is not merely a ritual, but an invitation for God to enter into our circumstances, to guide us, and to grant us peace. As the Apostle Paul wrote, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." Philippians 4 verse 6. Through prayer, we place our trust in God's hands, knowing that he is in control, even when life feels out of our control. Maintaining a continuous connection with God through prayer is essential. It is through this ongoing dialogue that we invite God's presence into our daily lives, allowing him to lead us through challenges and to calm our fears. As we persist in prayer, we grow in our ability to trust that God is at work, even when we cannot see it. Jesus assures us in Matthew 7 verse 7 to 8, "Ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be opened to you." This promise is a testament to God's faithfulness, reminding us that he hears our prayers and is always ready to respond. Prayer transforms our minds and hearts, helping us to see our situations through the lens of God's sovereignty. It shifts our perspective, allowing us to find peace in the midst of chaos and trust in God's control over our lives. In the words of C.S. Lewis, prayer doesn't change God. It changes me. Through prayer, we are reminded that God is orchestrating every detail of our lives, and even in our darkest moments, he is present, guiding us toward his perfect plan. As we navigate the trials and uncertainties of life, let us hold fast to the truth that God's timing is perfect. Let us embrace the waiting period as a time of growth, trusting that God is preparing us for something greater. Through prayer, we find the strength to endure, the peace to remain calm, and the faith to believe that God is at work, even when we cannot see it. And as we continue to seek him, let us do so with gratitude, knowing that he is always near, ready to guide us, bless us, and fulfill his promises in our lives. In this, we find not only hope, but a deep sense of peace, resting in the knowledge that God is in control, and his timing is always perfect. In the journey of faith, prayer serves as the compass that aligns our hearts with God's will. Through prayer, we gain the ability to perceive our challenges from his divine perspective, finding strength not in our own efforts, but in the reassurance that we are supported by a higher power. This spiritual discipline is not just a daily ritual, but a profound source of inner strength, connecting us to God's boundless grace and peace. As C.S. Lewis insightfully noted, prayer doesn't change God, it changes me. This shift in perspective allows us to face trials not with fear, but with a calm confidence, knowing that God's hand is at work, even in the midst of uncertainty. God's provision, particularly in times of hardship, is a testament to his unwavering care for us. Consider the Israelites in the wilderness. who were sustained by manna from heaven and quail provided by God. This miraculous sustenance was not just about meeting their physical needs, it was a lesson in trust. God was teaching His people to rely on Him fully, to understand that His provision is both material and spiritual. As we navigate our own deserts, those periods of doubt, fear, or scarcity, it's essential to remember that God's provision often comes in unexpected forms. He meets our needs in ways that stretch our faith and deepen our reliance on Him. Trusting in God's daily provision requires a heart of gratitude. When faced with difficulties, it's easy to overlook the subtle ways in which God provides for us. Yet these small, often unnoticed blessings are clear signs of His ongoing care. The daily bread we receive may not always be abundant or flashy, but it is always sufficient, always a reminder that God is with us in every step we take. This is the essence of God's provision. It's not just about ensuring our survival, but about affirming His constant presence and unfailing love. As we recognize these blessings, no matter how small, we cultivate a spirit of gratitude that transforms our trials into opportunities to witness God's hand in our lives. The importance of acknowledging and celebrating small victories cannot be overstated. In the struggle to overcome life's challenges, it's these minor triumphs that reveal God's active presence in our journey. Each small step forward is a reflection of God's guidance, moving us closer to the breakthrough we've been praying for. Lewis once said, "The smallest good act today is the capture of a strategic point from which, a few months later, you may be able to go on to victories you never dreamed of." These victories, however modest, are milestones of faith, marking our progress and reminding us of God's ongoing work within us. In every prayer, in every provision, in every small victory, we find reasons to be grateful to God. His guidance, even in the most difficult times, is a constant reminder of His love and care. As we continue to trust in His plan and celebrate the small steps along the way, we align our hearts more closely with His will. Through this alignment, we gain the strength to face whatever lies ahead, confident in the knowledge that God is always with us, leading us, providing for us, and preparing us for the greater victories to come. This is the essence of faith: a deep, abiding trust in God's provision, and a grateful heart that recognizes His hand in every aspect of our lives. Life's journey is often marked by small victories that may seem insignificant at first glance. Yet these are the very stepping stones that lead us to greater achievements. These seemingly minor triumphs are not to be overlooked, for they are powerful affirmations of God's faithfulness, whispering to us that He is actively working in our lives. Just as the tender sprouting of a seed in a garden heralds the bounty of a future harvest, these victories are indicators of the blessings that are yet to come. Take, for instance, the story of David before he faced Goliath. It wasn't the giant's defeat that first established David's courage and faith, but rather the smaller battles he won against the lion and the bear while he was a shepherd. These early victories were not just preparatory, they were vital in building the faith and confidence David would need to face Goliath. C.S. Lewis once said, "Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny." David's battles with the wild beasts were such hardships, necessary trials that strengthened his trust in God and his readiness to fulfill a greater purpose. Celebrating these small victories is not only a way to acknowledge God's ongoing work in our lives, but also a way to inspire and uplift others. When we share our victories, no matter how small, they become testimonies to God's grace and power. The ripple effect of sharing can strengthen the faith of those around us, making them witnesses to God's presence in the everyday moments. As C.S. Lewis also noted, we read to know we are not alone. In sharing our stories, we remind each other that we are part of a larger narrative woven by God, and that no one's journey is meant to be walked in solitude. Moreover, as we navigate our paths, it is essential to hold on to the expectation of God's blessings. Life, with all its challenges, can sometimes obscure our vision, making it difficult to see the blessings that are promised to us. Yet, as the Bible assures us in Psalm 27, verse 13, I remain confident of this, I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. This confidence is not a passive hope, but an active anticipation that God's promises will come to fruition, even if they arrive in unexpected ways. Our faithfulness and adherence to His will are the keys that unlock these blessings, though they may not always appear as we expect. The life of Joseph serves as a powerful reminder of this truth. Despite the numerous adversities he faced, being sold into slavery by his brothers, wrongfully imprisoned, and forgotten by those he helped, Joseph's life was a series of steps that ultimately led to an immense blessing, both for him and for the nation of Israel. His story illustrates how God's plan often extends beyond our immediate understanding, yet it is always crafted for a greater purpose. Joseph's journey reminds us to trust in God's timing, even when the road ahead is unclear. The metaphor of life as a garden is fitting here. Just as a garden requires time, patience, and care before it yields fruit, so too does our spiritual journey. There are seasons of planting and waiting, of tending and nurturing, which are all part of God's preparation for the harvest of blessings He has in store for us. The Bible is replete with promises of these blessings, and we are called to remain hopeful and vigilant, recognizing the signs of God's provision and grace in the daily moments of our lives. In those small victories and acts of kindness, we catch the first glimpses of the greater blessings God is preparing. They are the sprouting seeds of faith, promising a future harvest. As we celebrate these victories and share them with others, we not only strengthen our own faith but also contribute to a community of believers who are encouraged and uplifted by the evidence of God's hand at work. Let us remain grateful, ever mindful of the signs of God's favor, and confident in the blessings that lie ahead, knowing that each small victory is a testament to His unwavering presence in our lives. In the journey of faith, the transformation of our mindset is essential. Shifting our thoughts from focusing on challenges to expecting God's goodness is a powerful change that can elevate our spirits and strengthen our faith. As C.S. Lewis once said, "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending." This idea aligns with Romans 12, verse 2, which encourages us not to conform to the pattern of this world, but to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. When we embrace a mindset that looks forward to God's blessings, we become more resilient, more hopeful, and better prepared to receive the abundance He has planned for us. Reflecting on our current struggles and bringing them before God in prayer is another critical step in this transformative process. As we pause to contemplate the difficulties we face, we are reminded of Philippians 4, verse 6, which tells us, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." Writing down our worries and presenting them to God not only eases our burdens but also strengthens our trust in Him. This practice of intentional prayer reinforces the belief that God is actively working behind the scenes, even when we can't see it. As C.S. Lewis wisely noted, relying on God has to begin all over again, every day as if nothing had yet been done. Walking by faith, as highlighted in 2 Corinthians 5, verse 7, means trusting in God's promises and His perfect timing, even when the path ahead is unclear. Each trial we encounter serves a purpose, and we are reminded that God's blessings will manifest at the right moment. It's in these moments of uncertainty that our faith is tested and refined. Lewis's words, "Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny," resonate deeply here, emphasizing that every challenge we face is a stepping stone to something greater that God has in store for us. The paragraph concludes with a heartfelt prayer, inviting God's presence into the reader's life and affirming trust in His divine plan. This prayer is a plea for guidance and strength, echoing the sentiments found in Psalm 27, verse 14. Wait for the Lord, be strong and take heart, and wait for the Lord. It is through prayer that we seek peace in God's will and cultivate the patience needed to await His perfect timing. The prayer also serves as a reminder that God's plan is always good, even when we don't understand it, and that our role is to trust and wait with a heart full of faith. The message encourages sharing this hope and strength with others, spreading the light of God's love to those who may be struggling. By engaging with this content and passing it on, we not only fortify our faith but also help others find solace in God's promises. As we share this message, we participate in a greater mission, bringing encouragement and hope to a world in need. Just as C.S. Lewis observed, we are mirrors whose brightness, if we are bright, is wholly derived from the sun that shines upon us. We too are called to reflect God's light into the lives of others, guiding them toward the same hope and peace we have found. In this way, we fulfill the call to be bearers of God's message, ensuring that no one misses the crucial truths that sustain us through life's challenges.